Welcome to the Cabrera Lab podcast.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I am stupendous.
Which is stupid and
stupendous. And an addendum of mus.
And what is mus? That's a distinction.
That's the multiplier.
The multiplier.
The stupendous multiplier.
All right. Well, if you say so. All right. So we have a fun one today.
A fun one.
So we're going to do a think it through.
Okay.
One of our training camp members reached out because her 10-year-old son is terrified that monsters might jump out at him.
Oh, no.
Here's the thing. His fear and his belief about these monsters has grown so strong that there are parts of the house that he won't even go into. So she literally asked us, could we help think it through to help, how does she reshape his mental model, and also just how would she talk to him about mental models generally and how they do or do not match reality, because he's only 10.
Mm-hmm. So
that's what we're going to talk about. And, we're familiar with these scenarios.
So, I mean, I hate to say it, but this isn't so different from everyday things where people think things about the world that aren't true. Right? Her son is thinking something about the world that there are no actual monsters, but he believes and thinks and has a mental model that there are monsters, right? And we think these things all the time, right? We get mental models wrong about the world all the time.
Yes.
So although this is this can be heightened concern because it's your child and you care the most about your children, and it can be emotional because it's starting to increase, and he's not going into parts of the house. It's more than just I think there might be a monster under the bed or in the closet. Right. It's becoming more, right?
Mental models are shaping his behavior.
Yeah,
right.
Basically.
He is literally avoiding parts of his house because he's got this mental model that we all know is.
And if I thought there was a monster in a room in my house, I probably wouldn't go there either.
Right.
Right.
So it makes some sense.
So it makes sense when you think something is true, then you don't do certain things, or you do certain things, right? So that's a good indication of a really important law that these mental models, they're not just concepts. I mean, they are in one sense, but they lead directly to behavior. What you think is true about the world will cause you to behave in a particular way.
Right.
Otherwise mental models wouldn't be important in a sense.
Yeah. That's right.
Because they're kind of like we make them, they're not entirely accurate. And if they didn't shape our behavior, if they didn't lead directly to our behavior, then we would just be like, oh, I got an opinion and who cares? But my opinion about things is going to drive how I act in the world.
Yes.
And so suddenly it becomes really important.
And also how you feel. Like he's feeling genuine fear.
That's a great point. Not just how we act, but it's going to affect our emotion and all that kind of stuff. So pretty, interesting problem. So basically we have the idea of monsters. Let's give that the variable m, right? Mm-hmm. And what we want to do first probably is talk to them. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to talk to him at night when there's monsters, when he's in the moment. We want to talk to him when we have his attention, maybe in the morning or in the daytime or something like that. And what we want to do is like a monster is and a monster is not.
Yep.
And that's our is not list move. Right. That's one of the 6 most important moves. And we want to know not what our definition, our parental definition of a monster. We want to know when he says monster, what does he mean?
Right.
What's he talking about?
Right, because we don't know that what we think of a monster is the same as what he's thinking.
Totally.
Like he could have a very specific thing about the way he thinks about it that we wouldn't have even known about without asking this question.
Totally. Like when I was a kid, I only had one kind of reoccurring nightmare in my life, to me, if you had asked me like what the scary thing is, the monster, it would be that thing. And it was not what you think of. It wasn't like, monster. It was these weird, like huge balls like they were as big as rooms, and they would morph into other balls, right? They would like shapeshift, and they were kind of like scary and oppressive.
Like blobs?
Blobs, like like they were like blobs that would morph into other blobs, and it just felt like it wasn't a monster. It didn't have a face. It didn't have claws. It didn't have anything like that. So we want to know, when he says monster, is he talking about this, or is he talking about whatever it is that he's talking about? That's what we want to know. What is it and what is it not? Right? And in that, you might notice some patterns. For example, if he describes, something in, I don't know, Toy Story or something, it's something that looks and feels a lot like a movie he's seen.
Well, yeah, I mean,
then maybe that's an indication of relationship to, where is he getting this? But if it's something like this, you're like, oh, that's really interesting. This is more of like there's something emotional and bigger type of thing.
I have a question for you.
What's that?
People want to know how they can become systems thinkers.
Yep.
And even professional systems thinkers, or PSTs.
Start with white belt. White belt, you do the thinking quotient, the TQ test.
Yep.
It gives you your baseline, and it gives you the report of your strengths and weaknesses. Then you go on to yellow belt. Yellow belt is a relatively short course, lots of practice in the 6 moves. Okay. It's all about practice and performance. And then blue belt PST, the thing here is this is the moment where people consistently tell us, like on a daily basis, that the blue belt PST blows their mind, transforms them as a person, transforms their relationships, just completely changes the way they think and the way they kind of approach life.
That's great.
And that one, we really get into the 483 of DSRP, which is the 4 patterns, the 8 elements, and the 3 dynamics. There's one dynamic in there that consistently blows people's minds and changes their life. That's how you do it. And if you had asked me that 30 years ago, I would have said we as a field do not know. But today we have the research, we have the science behind it that says exactly what to practice and exactly what to do to become a systems thinker. And we can measure it over and over again over time with the TQ.
Well, I think we should encourage people to become systems thinkers. So we're going to throw a discount code on the screen and in the description below.
Yep.
So you can get started.
Make PST a wrap.
What's interesting about these 2 examples is if it's, we've had this happen before where, say, one of our kids when they were little went to a sleepover and they watched something that we would not have normally let them watch. And so if they describe a big blue furry thing, they saw Monsters Inc. and whatever, or they saw Stranger Things, which people say isn't scary, but I think it's really frightening, right? Or they describe something more amorphous like this. This could be the manifestation of a feeling, right, that they've conjured up. So that's
it could be
important distinction.
It's very important, and that's why, and it's hard sometimes that we don't want to project onto his monster.
Right.
We want to know what he means when he says monster.
Right.
Because what he means when he says monster is not the dictionary definition of a monster. It's not our definition of a monster. It's that he has something in mind, literally, of what this thing is and what this thing is not. And we want to help bring that out of him. Right? At that point, now we've kind of defined the space a little bit. We know that there's this thing that he calls a monster. We kind of have a more rich picture of what it is, and also the line that differentiates what is it, the kinds of things he's not talking about when he's talking about monster.
Yeah.
And then what we want to do is talk about, because the next thing he says is something about place. He doesn't want to go into this room or that room or this space or that space. Because there's monsters in there. So we want to talk about where do you see these monsters? Yeah. Right? What are these monsters a part of? Right? So if M is, we've defined what M is, where do they exist? Yeah. Do they tend to show up more in the
dark spots?
Dark areas, or do they tend to show up more in one room, or do they tend to show up, that type of thing?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like they show up, in his room more often than they do in the
kitchen
more often than they do in the playroom or whatever, laundry room, etc. Do you ever see them in the laundry room? Do you ever see them here? Do you ever? Oh no, okay. You just see them here and here. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't know the whole situation, so it's difficult for me to sort of, take the information that I would get and then go the next step. But if there were patterns across the places where he sees them, for example, why do kids think monsters are under the bed and in the closet? Well, the pattern there isn't closets and beds. The pattern is darkness, right? It's the place that is dark.
Right.
So when they get up and there's even a nightlight on, if they look around the room, the places they can't see are dark, and that's the bottom of the closet and the under the bed, right? Or even the places they can imagine not seeing under the bed, dark, right? Yes. So you want to see if there's a pattern to where he's seeing them. In this case, most kids see him in their room, and it's usually the shadows. Mm-hmm. But in this case, she's saying he's different not going into certain parts of the house now. Yeah. So there's maybe a different pattern, and it might be dark spaces, but it might be some other pattern. So we want to bring this out rather than impose our thinking onto this.
But that association with certain parts of the house is important because it could be an indication, for example, that he's really just afraid of the dark.
He could be.
And so to him, dark is scary, and then monsters are scary, and there's an association there. And
exactly. But again, I don't know the specifics. So if she said to me, well, we have nightlights in every room in the house.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's not the dark. Yeah. Maybe it's something else. Okay, so then you take the next step. But I would want to know, what are monsters? Where are you seeing them? Mm-hmm. And then you've kind of established the baseline, essentially. And then what you want to do is, again, depending on the kid, depending on how serious it is, those are all variables I don't know. But I'm going to speak generally about it. What we want to do is actually something equivalent to either catching the situation in the act and processing it.
Mm-hmm. You mean the moment when he's afraid?
Yes.
You want to have that conversation in that moment.
That moment. Yeah. Or reproducing, so it's either catching it, which might be difficult unless you stay up till, and whatever around and he's trying to go to sleep, but you can't sit there next to the bed or whatever or something like that. Right. But catching it in the act and then processing it. So that would look like, oh, you see a monster right now and you're scared right now? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Where do you see it? I see it over there in that corner. Oh, okay, let's shine up. I'll have a flashlight or something, or let's turn the light on. Is there a monster there? Right? There's no monster? Oh, okay. That's interesting. So you saw a monster or you imagined a monster, but there, in this particular case, there was no monster there. And what you have to understand is you're not trying to argue with him. Mm-mm. You're not trying to convince him. You're trying to show him the process of evidence.
Yes.
That he can discover on his own.
Yes.
So, because he's convinced, that the evidence for him is convincing that there's a monster. Mm-hmm. So we want the evidence to be convincing that there isn't.
Right, and also just teaching, you're giving the seed of fact-checking things, verifying things, testing your thoughts against what's real. Exactly. So you're getting that started.
So, I mean, in a way, this is like a really important lesson. This is the lesson of that science could teach all of us, which is like sometimes we believe crazy things. Sometimes we believe things that are wrong. In fact, a lot of times. In fact, the majority of times our thoughts are wrong.
Even for grown-ups.
Even for grown-ups. If a couple grown-ups could learn this. The other thing is create a representation of it. So, for example, you could do it right in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And you could, like, shut the blinds in a room or something like that, or not even do that, and say, last night you said you saw a monster in this room, and you ran away.
Yeah.
Let's walk through what happened. So you were walking to the bathroom. Let's walk together, like you're going to the bathroom, and you looked into the room.
Yeah.
And you saw a monster.
Yeah.
And you were scared.
Mm-hmm. Right? Have them describe.
Obviously, everything. I'm not saying it. I'm saying
no,
he's saying it. You're getting the direct report from him. So I was walking down the hall.
Right, so you do like a reenactment.
Yep, you kind of reenact it.
And overtly, like he's telling you what he was thinking, seeing,
And then what you do is you do the same thing. You kind of walk him through how to correct that mental model.
Right.
Right? What did you see? What did you see, an actual monster, or did you just see a blur? Did you see a shape? Did you see a whatever? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Either one of these can work, but we want to get him in the mode of monster finding, know, and discover what's really going on.
Yes, and I think it's not just getting him in the mode; it's getting his thoughts out.
Yes.
Verbally, so that you can actually hear what he was thinking at that moment, and try to correct. Maybe it's not correct. You want to test.
I mean, we are correcting because I'm pretty sure there's no monsters in the house. So we are correcting, but we don't want to correct.
Well, and you want to empower him with the skills to test whether or not it's
exactly, because eventually we want to get him to the point where he goes, "Oh, I just saw something." And it probably was something. It was maybe a shadow or some different shading of light or something. There's a thing called pareidolia, and pareidolia is seeing, things in things, right? Like you see Jesus in toast, or you see a rabbit in the cloud, or you see,
all over the internet.
We do this all the time. So, and shadows are notorious for pareidolia. So it's not that he's not seeing anything, he's just seeing something that he doesn't know how to describe, and so he's trying to make meaning out of it, and the meaning that he can make out of it is monsters.
Right.
Which is kind of like saying something that I can't fully describe.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And something that may or may not be scary to me, right?
Yes.
And so we want to get him in that space but then coach him through it.
Yes.
Not necessarily correct, but coach to correction.
Yes, and understand his mental model through the way he talks about it in that moment.
Yes.
Got
now, in this, the reason, you said something really important, which is he's going to say things. Mm-hmm. And what I say all the time in DSRP therapy and DSRP, coaching and DSRP anything when we're dealing with humans is that our words are kind of like huge billboard road signs to our mental models. Yes. It's like, our words are like, eat at Joe's kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like eat at mental models or whatever. Our mental model is this. Like when you see those words, a lot of times they'll give you a lot of clues as to what the kid's mental model really is.
Yes.
So, like you said, if he says something that's like very similar to, I don't know, how old is he?
10.
Okay, so he's probably not watching I don't know what he's watching at 10, but.
Well, that's the problem is, our kids, we had some pretty good limits.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want those images in their head.
Exactly.
Then they go to sleepovers and they're watching Friday the 13th.
Yeah, so he could have watched something or whatever. But I'm saying something he says, like if he said,
if he describes something
80s,
from a movie.
Right. If he said the monster had a chainsaw, you'd be like, did you watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre? That was like an 80s scary movie that scared the hell out of me. So
the one I used was the big blue furry, because Sully.
Yeah, because
Sully's technically a monster.
He's a monster, but he's kind of a friendly monster, right? Yeah. So.
But there are scary ones in there.
Exactly. So I'm saying, like, if he were to use some language that you're paying attention and you go, wait a minute, is that you make relationships to other places or other exposures that he's had, that can give you clues to where is this coming from.
Yes.
Or, it could literally be something you don't know about, which is he is getting bullied at school and so he's creating emotion.
Yes.
Emotion that feels scary.
Yes. And
he's taking that emotion and he's like, trying to process it essentially.
Yeah.
And so it's a monster, but it's this very abstract monster.
So you're saying it's like a proxy for his unexpressed emotions or things that he can't verbalize.
It could be, but again, don't project our stuff on the system. This is the most important thing.
I'm projecting, aren't I?
No. I'm just saying it very well could be that it's some like deep-seated emotional scary thing that's actually happening in his real life somewhere that maybe you know about or don't know about. But it could also be pareidolia of shadows. Like, it could be any of those things. We don't want to project what we think or fear it is, because then we're creating monsters on top of his monsters.
Right. So I think the point is extract from him in language and in behaviors and all of these things. Really do the work to understand his thinking without, in the process of doing that, interjecting your own mental models, your own baggage and emotions.
Or your deepest fears of what's happening to your kid.
Right.
You know, like, because then that you can be real creative, right? God, so these kids, they see a little pareidolia and they get creative, and they're like, it wasn't just a fleeting shadow.
Yeah.
It was I saw claws, and I saw teeth, and I saw eyeballs, and you're like, no, it wasn't just a pareidolia of a shadow. It was he's being, bullied at school, and somebody's torturing him, and I don't know about it, and what could be happening, and then you
take it down a whole road that's not even related to what he's
You're creating monsters too. So what we want to do is pull out, not put in.
Yes.
Pull out of how he describes it. That's why we want to know. That's why we start with what is a monster to you. Yeah. I'm not going to project my version of monster.
Right.
I want to know to you what's a monster and what isn't. Where do you draw the line between monster and not monster?
Yeah.
And where are you seeing it? I'm not going to project, well, it's probably anywhere it's dark or shadowy. That might be the case, but you don't know that because you haven't asked.
Well, so the second part of this person's question was, okay, so you can do the work. This is doing the work to uncover and understand the kid's mental model. Mm-hmm. Then the other question is, how do you talk to them to understand that it is a mental model and that it is only it's an approximation of what's real, and how do you language that? How do you talk to a kid about that?
Yeah, I mean, ironically, it's not even really like kids are just humans too, right? Yes. I mean, they may not have the experience that we have, they may not have the language that we have, but they have very, very capable and adaptive brains, and they are very, very smart, and they
smarter than we think.
Yeah, and so, I would ask the same thing, like when you have somebody that's hell-bent on their opinion, how do you convince them that their opinion isn't right? Well, you can try to show them some evidence.
Right.
You can try to shine a light on why their identity is tied to that opinion, right? If the evidence doesn't work, which it often doesn't, then you could say, maybe this is something that has to do with your identity, and you're holding tight to this thing that you believe because it says something about you.
Right.
And there's some deep evolutionary, things to why we hold on so tightly to our identity that it feels almost like survival and things like that. But generally speaking, it's either dealing with the counter evidence or dealing with the underlying cause or web of cause that leads you to believe it even in the face of evidence against it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember a while ago, our kids are older now, but when ours were little, you did some work with them around the idea of imagination.
Yeah.
And the fact that imagination has inside of it an image, something that's in your mind. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to remember how you contrasted that to what's real and what you distinguish between your imagination and what's real. And it actually really made a sense to them at the time.
Yeah, I called that the Norman Rockwell. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that these things like monsters and things are just your imagination processing information, and they're like images in your head, but they're not necessarily existing in the real world.
This might be where you end up with the monster thing, but it's certainly something that we work on a lot of other things with. Is like you have the real world out here, and like this is the world, the universe, the reality. And your mental model of reality, so this is the love reality loop. All of this stuff comes down to the love reality loop, essentially, which is ME equals IO and R equals IO in loop.
Right.
So we want to fit back and feed back the mental model so that we make the mental model more like reality. But sometimes what you're talking about has to do with what I just said about the identity. What's the underlying web of causality that makes you want to believe this particular thing, even when it doesn't work in reality, which is happening to people all the time, not just kids. And so maybe you paint a picture, like Thanksgiving is coming up, right? Maybe you paint a picture of the Thanksgiving table, and there's people around the table, and that's why I call it the Norman Rockwell effect, right?
Yeah.
And Norman Rockwell was famous for painting
like idyllic
Americana kind of scenes.
Happy.
Well, yeah, just like idyllic Americana kind of scenes, and which had some truth and also were idyllic. And so you had this table where everybody was laughing, and everybody was, there was your crazy uncle wasn't there, and blah blah blah, right? And they weren't talking about politics, and
politics.
or they were talking about politics, and nobody was getting upset. But it's this idyllic scene, and that is your mental model. And so a lot of folks, like
most of them,
moms everywhere is one example.
Just moms?
Probably everybody, but I'm saying
definitely moms.
When it comes to Thanksgiving, a lot of moms want their whole family there, all the kids. They want it to be perfect. They want it to be a certain way, right? And so you have that mental model, that portrait of the reality. And then when the reality starts to look anything different from that portrait.
I burned the turkey and Uncle Bob showed up.
Then all of a sudden,
my conservative aunt and my far left mother are arguing.
So you're looking at it and you're going, wait a minute, whoa. No, this is my picture. So what you're doing is you're saying, I want this, like this, want to believe this, want this to be real more than the way reality is. And this picture is not real. This picture is like a rendition of how you wanted reality to be.
Not actually.
And a lot of people don't realize it's there. They don't realize that they have this picture of how it's supposed to be. This happens on wedding days too. You have the picture.
Yeah.
You've been dreaming since you were 7 years old about how your wedding day is going to be, and then you have a hurricane on your wedding. On your wedding day or something like that, right? Which was not part of the picture.
Your outdoor wedding became a very wet indoor wedding.
Exactly, which happened at our wedding. What we want to do is ask ourselves, do we want to love reality, the real Thanksgiving that's happening? This slice of reality is the Thanksgiving that's happening, and this is the Thanksgiving you get.
Yeah.
And, can you appreciate it in all of its sundry, quirkiness?
Yeah.
Or are you going to constantly be comparing it to this fake picture of reality?
Right.
And making yourself stressed, unhappy, that type of thing.
Yes.
So it's not totally the thing I would use for the monsters thing per se, but you can see the similarities. He's painting a picture, which is his mental model, and what we want to do is have him choose reality over mental model.
Well, and I think for me, when I remember you talking to the kids when they were younger, you were getting across that the images in your head are not necessarily real in the real world. They're just things, and sometimes they're put in your head from movies and songs and
experiences, all kinds
whatever.
Of stuff.
And you got it across to them that the picture in your head is not the reality.
Yes.
And so that contrast helped them understand, oh, this is in my head.
Yes.
Now let me look and see if it actually...
Yeah.
So they sort of started to test those things kind of young.
Exactly. And this is, in many ways, strangely enough, more important than ever, because I'm sure if you're not living under a rock, you're seeing, today, you're seeing... It used to be the case that you'd say, well, a picture doesn't lie. And then not 20 years ago, that changed, right? Pictures could lie.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, video doesn't lie. and you're like, okay, well, yeah, video lies too, right? And then it was like a person I know saying something on video is not a lie. That can't be faked. And now, of course, we're seeing everything can be fake, deep fakes. And so what's happening is some of these pictures are actually showing up in reality, but with AI and things like that, in our real world experience. And we have to be better, not just at deconstructing the pictures in our head, but deconstructing the pictures that we're seeing in the real world.
Yeah.
And being able to distinguish whether they're information, misinformation, disinformation, purposeful misinformation. Yeah. If we don't, we're in real trouble.
Well, if we don't, we're entirely manipulatable.
Yeah.
And we are just, clueless as to reality, which is why I think you always say, go to the source.
Yeah.
Find the source, from the beginning.
And I'm seeing even pictures, some of these videos, and again, I'm not even sure if those videos are real. So let's test that. But I'm seeing them, interview people and show them a video and say, is it real or not? And a lot of people are getting it wrong. And when I watch the videos, there's real tiny little subtle distinctions. That's why DSRP can be so powerful, because when you see it, you see subtle inconsistencies, subtle distinctions, subtle part-whole incongruencies, right. Subtle relational incongruencies, and subtle perspective shifts that aren't normal. And they're very tiny, but you can tell whether it's AI or not, although I will say that's getting harder and harder to do. But still very possible. Right,
but now what's funny is, the kids will show me a video, you'll show me a video, and my first question is that real?
Is that real?
Because I know that the likelihood of it not being real is far higher than it being real. And just to loop it back to the monster conversation. Mm-hmm. So it seems, it's a normative thing that kids have these kinds of irrational fears. They manifest in different ways. But I think what's important is that monster conversation, teaching kids to test what they think versus what actually is real, is the predecessor to this.
Totally.
Is the predecessor to being able to say, is that video real? Because it seems not.
Is the predecessor for the kid to
that's do what I mean.
This? Yeah, that's what you're saying. But it's so important.
Yeah, because it seems like a conversation about monsters.
Yeah.
But it's actually a conversation
it's
about.
It's a skill.
Yeah, it is. It's the skill of, A, knowing that sometimes the things that we think are not real, which is really important, and B, understanding that in order to discern whether or not they're real, we have to know that they need to be tested.
Yes.
And we have to then. That's
evidenced.
why, yeah. And that's why we have to teach kids what evidence is, and so that 10-year-old conversation is setting this boy up to be a free thinking scientific
in real life, not a scientist as a job, but a scientist a person who is scientific, who goes through life testing what they think against reality and collecting evidence to decide what they. How they're going to change what they think.
Yeah.
And that is a tremendously valuable skill. In fact, I would say in the age of AI, the most important skill.
I think that's
the skill of thinking, the skill of being able to think, which a huge part of that skill is being able to challenge your thinking.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it reminds me of Kurt Lewin always said, there's nothing more practical than a good theory. And sometimes, people accuse me of being too theoretical, but to me, a theory, a true theory, not a hypothesis, a theory that has undergone a tremendous amount of evidence is the most practical thing in the world. And I think even if you look at the language of this conversation and what we've been talking about, when you see a video online, you go, is that real? Is that real? ?
Yeah.
And there's nothing theoretical, quote unquote, about that. You go, is that real? I need to know, is that real or is that fake? You're constantly trying to figure out what's real and what's not real.
Yeah.
Well, if I told you that there is an underlying theory supported by a tremendous amount of scientific evidence that defines this, that defines what is real.
Yes.
In very specific terms, that defines what is a mental model in very specific terms, meaning something that is just thought but not necessarily real, and defines how these two things interact and don't interact, and defines how we are biased in doing this that causes us not to see this. Right? If I told you that there was a theory, you'd be like, maybe a lot of people would be like, how is that practical?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's the most, what Kurt Lewin was saying is a good theory is actually the most practical. It's what I call nature's practice. Yes. A good theory, when we discover a good theory, what we're actually discovering is nature's practice.
Yes.
Reality's practice, the way reality does stuff.
Right.
So it's the most powerful thing you can find, which is why science is looking for them.
Right.
Because it tells you exactly how things work.
Yes.
And so when we ask the question, which seems like a very practical question on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, is that real? Mm-hmm. We're asking something very practical.
Yes.
And we need better theory for it. And everybody needs that in this new world of AI and just the complexity of the world. It's very important.
Right. And that's actually a really good starting point for, your son comes into the room in the night and he's like, there's a monster under my bed. Well, you need to ask yourself, is that real? Is there really a monster under your bed?
Exactly. And I would say what you were saying, we should probably double hit on what you were saying earlier, is don't see that as a problem to be solved about monsters.
Right.
See that as an opportunity, a teachable moment, and see every instantiation of interactions with your kids as a teachable moment, as an opportunity to get them ready for adulthood, to get them ready for reality.
Yes.
And if you teach them how to process this scary thing, how to use their mind to process this scary thing, this scary experience that they're having, and determine, is that real?
That's a skill.
Well, that's a skill that they'll be using their whole life. It's called thinking.
Yes. Yes.
And it's a really important skill.
It's the most important skill.
Yeah.
And the most important. It's going to help them navigate every single thing in their life.
Yep. That is a wrap.